Welcome, everybody. It is Monday, October 14th. This is the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School Board. Edie Granning, I'm the board chair. Really glad to have everybody here tonight. We have a couple of folks who are still on tour in the building, but we will get started because we have a quorum. So I'm going to review the agenda, and if we have any modifications or changes, we can make those now, and then we will get started. We start with community comments. Then we have the Smiley Principal Report. Derek is giving the tour, but he will be here momentarily, I am sure. Then we have our presentation on the budget from Special Services, Curriculum, Human Resources, and Technology. We will review the draft from the Superintendent search focus groups for the criteria for the search. We have minutes to approve. We have some committee reports, and then we will be done unless we have any other business. Other agenda items? I don't know. Okay. Then Pat, if you could take us through the roll call, that would be great. We do have a new student with us tonight, and I'll give Eli a minute to introduce themselves after we go through the roll call.
Okay, thanks. Tara Arneson.
Present.
Kevin Campbell.
Here.
Heather Chadwick.
Present.
Allison Conant. Gail Conley.
Present.
Stephen Diglio.
Here.
Tom Firstel.
Here.
Edie Granning.
I am here.
James Granzow.
Don't see Jimmy.
Susan Lillick.
Present.
Sandra Limoges.
I'm here.
Ethan Mara.
Here.
Rick Morajo.
He will be here momentarily if he's not here yet.
Edie Nelson.
Here.
Lisa Pollock.
Present.
And student rep Abby O'Malley.
Here.
And Eli.
Here.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
So Eli is our new student rep from the junior class, and if you would just take a minute to introduce yourselves. And after Eli does that, I'm just going to have everyone in the room go around and on screen, just go around and say your name and the town that you're from. Just Eli's going to remember all of them the first time.
My name is Eli Lamette. I'm from Jericho, Vermont, obviously. I'm in the 11th grade. I've been in the district, I feel like this is relevant. I've been in the district for 9 years now. I came in 2nd grade. Is there anything else anyone wants to know?
Where'd you come from?
I used to go to BFA Fairfax. So, 9th grade.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We're happy to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm just going to start. Edie Granning, Jericho. I've known Eli since he was really, really, really little, so I'm very excited to have you here also. And I had nothing to do with his selection, like just to be very clear on that.
I'm Gail Conley. I'm from Huntington.
Well, you know, I'm Abby, but I'm from Bolton.
I'm Katie. I'm from Richmond. We've met. I did have something to do.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm Heather. I'm also from Richmond.
Steve, I'm from Bolton.
Yeah.
It's a Richmond thing.
Yeah.
Tom Firstel from Jericho.
Sandra from Jericho. Eli and Tara are using she, her pronouns, and I'm Richmond.
Derek Howard, resident of Bolton. I'm a principal small ward. Kevin Campbell from Hunter.
Great. So on screen, I'm just going to stick with board members for now. So Ethan, Lisa, and Susan, and then Stu.
Hi, I'm Ethan Maurer from Huntington.
Hi, I'm Lisa Pollock from Underhill.
Oh, Susan, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Eli. I'm Susan Lillick from Jericho.
And hi, I'm Stuart Morgio from Jericho as well.
All right, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Let's go to community comments. Anybody here that has community comments? Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes per person. Board requests that participants clearly state their name and place of residence and topic of comment. The board will take no action on items raised during community comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification unless immediate attention is required. So is there anybody here with community comments, either remotely or in person? I'm not seeing anyone, so jump up and down or wave your hands wildly if you have comments. Okay. Derek, the floor is yours.
So I'm not going to read through my report. If there's any questions on it, please ask. A few highlights for me as we've developed as a school is the work that's going into the multi-age classrooms and the outdoor education programs that we're developing here. And also, there's been a lot of support through the community for the school, but I feel like there's a lot more community events going on at the school, which I think is really, really important. This year, also a lot of flooding, and I think it's really important for the school. I think that sense at home to help support families. And so the community here continues to thrive, continues to grow. I'm really proud to be a principal here. I love coming to work every morning. If people want to come and visit, the door is always open to you. I think it's a really, really special school. And the happiest school in America, according to someone.
Can you just talk about how long you've been here?
I'm going into my third year. My daughter Sydney came here. So I was connected with the school. She's now 13. So ever since really I've lived here, I've been connected with the school. So.
Any questions for Derek based on anything he said or anything in the report or anything you've seen here?
How is the program going with specializes on providing, additional resources and special for kids with special needs?
Incredible. We were talking about it on the talk. The goal is to have a program within schools to integrate the students into regular ed, and what Smiley allows is for slow integration. We've got a really caring community here, and I see students at home at recess playing together, having fun together, and their needs being met in different ways in different classrooms. So again, I would encourage people to come see it because it's really special work. We have the space here to be able to support the students' needs. Sometimes we need time and space in order to make good choices. And I think the program that was really strong staff was set up, and that was well.
And just for background, we've had a program like this for more than 20 years.
Yeah. It was on Route 15.
Outside of our school buildings.
For
first
quite
10
a while.
years.
Quite a while. Then Jericho, and then Richmond, and then now here. We've had a alternative program for a while. We also have one at the middle school, and then one at the high school. And there's really very few specialized programs for students right now. A lot of them, either there's a huge waiting list or they've closed. And so we really tried to develop ours over the last few years post-COVID. And it's just been an excellent start here. Again, one of the critical parts is having, the right space and the right environment. And Smiley really fits that bill.
Go ahead.
How many students are enrolled in the program now?
6 currently.
6.
We have room for a few more. We have a few that are thinking about the application process. And honestly, I don't know what we would do if we didn't have it. It would be very difficult.
That was my question about how students are identified or how they're enrolled in the program. So there's an application process.
Yep. And we can forward that to you. It's like a really kind of a structured process so that there's some consistency and some a way for us to make sure that the students need to be there. Sometimes it's through the IEP process as well. So it would be an IEP team, which includes parents and staff members and sometimes some outside professionals that get together and say, is this the right fit for the student? It's evolving. I mean, I think this is important because it's something that we're going to really need to make sure we focus on over the next couple of years is creating our own therapeutic spots for students who need them. And I think that has a real potential that we may, if we have open spaces, to be able to work with other communities and be able to have students from other school districts come here and pay to be able to do that.
First, I have to say, well done on the sign. Don't remember ever seeing such a welcoming sign for a school board meeting so far.
And that's not my handwriting either.
We'll have to check that. Nice job. The hearts on the smiley name. Speaking of signs, when I pulled in, I noticed there were a lot of signs that said "Thou shall not," no, that stuff. I might not have been here last year, so it might not be brand new, but how are things, this is the Andrew Pond question, how are things going with the potholes and the parking and the garbage and all those things that have been happening in the past?
Can we do a little bit of history on that? So the parking lot here is often used for the potholes parking, and a few years ago, by request of the town of Fulton, we added signage to the parking lot saying that the parking lot is not to be used for parking to go to the potholes because it's dangerous, because people were drinking and using drugs and across school property. You have to go through school property to get there. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to defer to John S., but I would like to say that because of the signage, very little trash, very few problems the last in the time that I've been here because of the work that has gone on. So, very good.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I have like the institutional knowledge of stopping here on a hot Saturday and the parking lot being like really scary. So it's so much better than it was. And I do want to say, there's pros and cons to it. So I don't want to, I'm sure there's residents who would like to use it, and we certainly recognize that, but the issues have exponentially gone down for the school district. And we have been, I think, really good partners with the town, and I really appreciate them because it has been some good communication for decades. And, I think they've been understanding that we don't have the capacity to monitor that parking lot. We just, we don't have the people or the ability when it gets really, really active.
And if I can just add to that, John, the town is always working, well, there's a working group currently to see if they can find a solution for parking for the potholes. There's working with them on the conservancy. So it's not that it's a static thing. There's a working group to try and resolve the problem, but it's a town issue around parking. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Just have one more, we got the property get impacted by the flood. How do you feel about repairs when you still feel like there's any vulnerable areas that need to be addressed or anything?
You talk about on Joiner Brook?
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people about Joiner Brook. I don't think the concern is actually Joiner Brook. I think the concern is flooding coming up from the MMUUSD, which this would be one of the last areas that would be impacted, is the housing down there that would be impacted more. You're an engineer. I think that Joiner Brook itself has natural valves down through it. So I think what we saw July 10th this year is a rarity. I think our biggest is exactly, and I think the bigger concern is that the capacity for the MMUUSD, which wouldn't so much impact the school, and we're looking at evacuation routes in light of that, because last week we did evacuations for the fire station, which is great. We do doing collaboration with the fire department. But if there was flooding from the MMUUSD, it'd be a completely different scenario. So we're constantly thinking about that, rather than talking to people. That's a bigger concern than trying to look.
It was real fast. That's the problem with that. But the damage that happened in the repairs, you're happy with that?
Yeah. Obviously, if there was unending money, then you would say, well, let's reinforce the riverbank even more, so it becomes totally impenetrable. But there's money constraint with everything. So at the moment, yeah, very happy with what's been done.
I agree. They did a good job.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having us, welcoming us to your school. You are welcome to stay and you are welcome to head out. So don't feel like we won't
for everything you do.
Thank you. All right, our next agenda item is budget priorities. Do we want to share the document, or will folks just talk through and people have access to the document?
There's a link in the agenda if you want to link to it. You can post it. We thought we would go in order with technology, human resources, curriculum, and special services.
Great. So when you present, if you would tell us your name and how long you've been with the district, your name and your title and how long you've been with the district, that would be really lovely for all of us. Thank you. Jeff, I'm going to let you start. Unless you want me to put this in a different context.
No, that's fine. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Jeff Wallace, the Director of Technology and Network Engineering here for the district. And I don't always like to say how long I've been here, but I've been here for 25 years. This is my 25th year. So I started when there was very little technology in the district, and have seen it grow into what we have today. So for the budget priorities for technology, we really have two main priorities. And the first is around providing reliable, safe technology systems for student learning, for staff and productivity, and also our building operations. And the goals that really support that priority are around having a good infrastructure for our technology. So that's really our switches, access points, servers, high-speed internet access, and just providing that and maintaining that service. And then also maintaining our operational technology. So we've come to really rely on technology just for day-to-day operations, and that's really like our door access control, our camera systems, phone systems, our student information systems, emergency notification systems. So we have a lot of different information technology systems that we use on a day-to-day basis. And so if they're not available, it really creates a challenging environment for our students and staff. And then the last goal for that priority is really looking at maintaining a sustainable budget plan and for like cycling out our devices. And that's really around making sure that our equipment's functioning well. We have a one-to-one program for students. We provide devices for staff. We also have a lot of technology in classrooms for displaying teachers' lessons and things like that. So just making sure that we have a good cycle out plan that the budget supports, and that's really based on student enrollment. So maintaining that and making sure that our equipment's functioning and running well. And as part of that, and this goes into the influence on expenditures, we really we buy consistent equipment across the district. We use the same systems in all of our schools. So we try to really be efficient. We have, this helps us have less personnel to support this equipment. We're able to troubleshoot things a lot quicker. Really, no real increase for this priority, but maintaining what we have and really continuing to use our tech team to support it and reevaluating our systems and software, make sure that it's meeting our needs. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if that's okay. That's better. All right, I'll keep going. The second priority is really ensuring that our data systems are safe and secure, as well as our student and staff data. And the goal is to support that. The main goal that we've really been enforcing is student data privacy agreement. So in order to use any software that collects student data, we require that we have a legal contract in place with that company and that vendor, making sure that they're following all of our data, data privacy, how they're storing the data, how they're collecting the data, what they're using it for, and all of that. So making sure that we are having those in place, and then the next goal is really enhancing our cybersecurity posture. And we've done a lot to increase awareness with our staff, and really we've rolled out new awareness training for our staff around that. One of the other projects we're doing is a zero trust cybersecurity implementation. This is something that we started this summer. We used some E-rate money to help pay for that. Really, that's just a way to make our systems more secure, robust, authenticating our staff to making sure that only people that need access to student data have that access. And then also an incident response plan, really looking, there's a number of school districts around our area that have been hit with like ransomware and other data attacks. And so making sure that we're protecting ourselves and our data against those. And then the last big goal that supports this is really around digital citizenship and focusing on making sure that our students have good digital citizenship skills. We've been working over the last few years on a scope and sequence for digital literacy, and part of that is our digital citizenship skills for students, and really looking at what is appropriate, what skills students should have at different grade levels, and where those should be, introduced and, then taught and then reinforced. I'm getting a lot of feedback again, but I'll just keep going so you can all hear me.
We can hear you.
I was going to say, it sounds great in here.
Okay. All right.
Jeff, I think it's on the on our side. I was noticing it's maybe a little sensitivity with the microphone.
Okay.
Maybe like someone tapping on the table next to it, but yeah, I'm here
Oh,
to
that's
say
probably me.
I wonder if we mute the last one who's talking, if that would stop it.
Yeah.
Just tap the microphone.
Yeah.
Brett's got it.
Okay,
Is that-
so back to digital citizenship. So we're really, we've been working with our librarians and our guidance counselors and our digital learning leaders to really understand what's being taught, where at different grade levels, and then trying to align that with our scope and sequence, and really getting those lessons integrated into classrooms with teachers, and eventually having teachers, when they introduce units or doing different lessons, that they have those digital citizenship pieces integrated right into it, and it's consistent across the district. And for this priority, we're not looking at any real increase in funding. I know we've talked about this in the past, and there are, software vendors want an increase every year, and so that's something that we push back pretty heavily with them. We try to renegotiate our contracts every year. We have a committee that looks at all of our software. We analyze the data of what's getting used, what's not getting used. We work with our curriculum folks to understand what, if we're meeting our curriculum outcomes with different educational software. And so really continuing to do that work every year to renegotiate and reevaluate what we have and what we're using, and stay within our budget on that. We also use E-rate funds to fund a lot of our infrastructure. So that has been a great thing for us. We've, over the years, paid for a lot of, most of our, I should say about 60% of our infrastructure every year with E-rate funds, which is really helpful. This infrastructure is very expensive, as well as cybersecurity and grants. They've, E-rate is just expanded to allow some cybersecurity things in that as well. So we can continue to use that. And then really maintaining the current, budget investments that we have. So I think that's everything I had. I'm glad to answer any questions around this priority.
So questions for Jeff, and you're gonna wait. Yes, go ahead, Tara.
So I don't know how much this is for Jeff, and it would be for John and Jeff, or John, Jeff, and Rebecca. Because Jeff just talked about cybersecurity training for everybody. Do we also do a FERPA training? So if teachers or admin or somebody discloses student information when they shouldn't, is there a response plan for that?
Yes. We do have an incident response plan for, if there was a breach of data or a disclosure of data. Yes, we do. We do have a training that we give annually around FERPA, so people have a good sense of what it means.
Great. Yes.
James Granzo here. Question, what percentage or what line items do we outsource to contractors that are, door security is most likely outsourced to somebody, just as an example, but how many different line items in our tech budget are outsourced?
I think for the most part, we do a lot of things in-house. We do work with different installers. So I would say, like you mentioned, door access. We have a local security company, Safety Systems of Vermont. They're the same company that does our maintains our alarm systems and our fire safety systems. And so they are usually the installers for like our door access control, and we work with them to kind of get it all installed and up and running. And then we take over as far as maintaining and managing the day-to-day operations. And I would say a lot of our technology is around that model, with sometimes, getting help with installers and getting things up and running. And then the tech team pretty much manages the day-to-day management of all of our systems. Yeah.
Gail?
Could you talk a little bit about our tech staff? Are they very stable? Have we had a lot of turnover? And if you do have to find somebody, how difficult is that?
Yeah, I think our tech staff over the years has been very stable. You know, we have 6 tech support specialists. We have a data manager, and then we have 2 digital learning leaders. And I would say the tech staff that have left have mostly been retirements, and so they've been with the district for a number of years. We have had, a few staff leave. Generally, we're able to find, tech staff that will work out. We really focus on customer support and customer service rather than direct tech skills. I think and we've been really fortunate to find both in a lot of our candidates. We hired, last year we hired a new person, and the year before we hired a new person, and both of them are excellent, for our team. Yep. And all of them are, I would say that we're very, they're tech support specialists, but we try to give them, use their strengths, and they all have different strengths and different, skills, lots of tech skills in different areas. And so we use those, and they all work as a team collaboratively. They don't all just work in one building and do the same thing for that one building, but a lot of them work across the district. They might be a system manager in one system. So it's a very collaborative team. We have a great team. So yeah, very happy with our team.
Go ahead, Steve.
Steve Eagle Bolton. Can you elaborate a little more on the student data privacy agreements? Like what kind of data that we allow outside companies to collect, like what we do, what we don't permit, what we do permit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, when we say student data, it's anything that's outside of what FERPA allows in the directory listing. So like name and things like that. We do, and usually it's like educational systems. So let's say, a student wants to get on and practice their typing. So that may sound like, okay, well, that's, what student data is there in that, but there is student data as part of that. So that is, that is a service that a third party stores that data, and they usually use Google to sign in. So when they sign in with Google, they get, certain information like the student's name, and that is personally identifiable to that student. And then it could be their typing lessons that they're using, and where they're at in their typing, or, but there's other data as well, like we have, like STAR screeners, which is basically screening data that we use. Teachers use that data. And so that's a third party that is a software that they're running as a service. And so they collect student data. So we have an agreement with them. So yeah, we have it's pretty much a big gamut of, different types of data they're collecting, but we require an agreement with every single one.
Yeah, can I just ask, adding on to that, are they allowed to use the data for marketing, or are they allowed to sell the data?
Absolutely no. Yeah, and there's a minimum level. So we basically do it. There's a student data privacy consortium that we're a member of, that's kind of partly through the state of Vermont helped us get started with that. But really there's national standards and we follow those standards. So there's a lot of requirements around that. That is a base level before we'll even try to get an agreement with them. So things like where they store their data, you know, and there's a lot of Vermont law that's part of that. And so, yeah, like where they're going to store the data, what they're able to do with it, but they're not able to, you know, they can't even have like targeted ads on any of the sites that we use. Things like that is like a base level before we'll even try to get an agreement with them. And we use, so that is one service that we have outsourced. There's a group of lawyers that we hire to develop those data privacy agreements with each vendor. So,
great. Thanks. Do you have questions, Kevin? Go ahead.
Have to. Hey, Jeff. I guess first thing for these sessions that we're doing right now, where we're hearing from the various teams on their priorities, just for like new people. This is repeat. Sorry, but this is an opportunity for us to hear specifically the priorities that they're seeing that they need to work on that may influence the budget cycle that's coming up. So in the past, we didn't really have these, and we kind of like, you know, weren't really informed and weren't able to set our district's expectations when it comes to big swings in the budget or whatever. So really the focus here is like, oh, okay, so you're working on that. That's going to drive the budget up or down. We can kind of start to understand that well before the budget is presented to us. I think it's also a great opportunity to ask questions about whatever, because sometimes we have these meetings and it's like really quiet and boring for all parties. So I don't want to stifle that engagement at all. The board has taken up two IT-related issues over the last year that I don't see represented in the priorities. And they may not be budget drivers, but to bring them up, we've talked about how the district's going to prepare for and leverage AI in education. And we've talked about how the district is going to potentially mitigate the risk of cyberbullying in our district. And those two items don't appear in your priorities. Do you plan to do anything in that space, or looking for the board to take those items up?
No, I mean, it's definitely something that we are looking at. I think the cyberbullying falls in line with our digital citizenship work for sure. I think it's obviously a broader, you know, not just technology. I think technology is one component of that, but that's definitely something that would be driven by John and, you know, that I think. And AI, we are definitely, that's something that we have looked at as a district and as a school. I know different schools, we have like an AI committee at the high school, for example, that's looking at that. And we have deployed AI, like, you know, one issue with AI is potentially students using it to cheat. So we have implemented AI detection software that's built into like our learning systems and things like that to really, you know, look at that. So yeah, it is an issue that we're looking at. I don't view that as a budget priority. I guess it's definitely you know, it is a technology priority that we're looking at for sure.
I'm not seeing any other questions. I know we could probably have a full board meeting about this topic. So that we may invite you back at some point, Jeff, but thank you so much today.
Okay, well, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Tebow, and I am the Director of Human Resources in our district, and I've been with the district 8 years. And so I'm going to talk about the priorities for human resources. And I know you've reviewed the document. So there are 3 priorities for human resources. The first is attracting and hiring qualified staff. And the second is offering and supporting professional development and training opportunities. And lastly, continuing to develop and improve our HR systems and procedures for efficiency. And some of the goals around these and the needs are maintaining competitive pay and benefits. And I know that I'm starting to work with the HR committee right now. We are going into negotiations for next school year. So we'll be working on that this year. Continuing to successfully onboard our new employees. We continue to have a very strong mentoring program for new educators. And so we want to continue to do that. Continuing to support our employees, their wellness with our robust wellness program that we have for employees. And we work directly with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont and VHI to offer different programs regarding health and wellness for our staff. And we continue to offer EAP services to all of our staff as well. Continuing to offer and provide a safe working and educational environment is another piece of that. We also want to continue to support professional development and training our staff so that they're prepared and continue to keep up with the technologies that are out there. And, we continue to do that through in-house training. We do required trainings every year. I know that was brought up with the FERPA question to Jeff, and we do training. All of our staff have to be trained on that each year with a variety of other things. And then we also continue to support teachers and support staff with courses that, with funding for courses as well and professional development opportunities. We need to continue to maintain compliance with all federal and state laws and regulations, and then continuing to streamline our systems and our processes within our central office and within our schools, working with our central office. So that's a continued priority for us, is to continue to work on those pieces so that we can be more efficient. In regards to the budget investments, these are essentially just maintaining the current budget investments going into this school year and next school year. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any questions.
Could you just talk about what percentage of our budget is based in our salaries and staff benefits?
John, do you have an accurate number for that?
Yeah, it's about 80%.
Yeah.
Sandra.
Rebecca Sandra Limoges from Jericho. I'm interested in hearing more about, under priority one, the goal of retain and recruit a diverse workforce that fosters a culture of respect and understanding. I'm curious how you feel the district is currently doing with that. And that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So I think that we're doing very well with this. I think that we have a more diverse workforce, certainly, than before I started. And I think a lot of that is from some of the different programs that we've offered in our school district that does help attract a more diverse workforce. And I think we've done, when I was speaking of training, we've done a lot of training around diversity and inclusion, and we continue to do that work. I think, we've worked a lot with our AVAR Council and really bringing some of that training and making sure that all of our employees are involved in that training. And so I feel like we're doing a good job at this. We've also been recruiting and trying different methods of recruitment using different sites that are more geared towards some of the more diverse audiences. And so we've been trying different things when it comes to trying to recruit to be more diverse as well.
Thank you.
Other questions for Rebecca? Go ahead, Steve.
In regard to the benefits, health insurance increases seem like they're kind of a big driving force for the budget increases year over year, or at least they can be a big ticket item for that. What's that looking like for this coming year, the health insurance budget increase?
Yeah, it was a very large increase. And so I don't know how familiar all of you are with the health insurance, but it is a state plan that all school employees are in. And so the whole state gets the same increase. And it was very high. So 16%, correct, John?
Yeah, 16.2%.
And yeah. And so they do negotiate this at the state level, and they've decided that rather than negotiating what the pay, like what it looks like for what the employee percent is that they pay and what districts pay, they're really deciding to hold off on that, but really focus on how to cut the costs overall with health insurance. And so that's their focus for the next couple of years, is to figure out how to not have these double-digit increases every year.
So that was pulled out of the board's hands 3 years ago, I think, something like that, and became a statewide.
We can't negotiate the plan, but is there negotiations with our teachers with how much they pay, or is that all now just the state?
It's all the state, and it just becomes part of whatever contract we negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Kevin.
School boards do participate in that negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, school boards are at the table, or representatives of school boards are at the table as part of that negotiation. Yes.
So they're not directly involved.
Our board is not directly involved, but yes, there are school boards that are.
John, put you on the spot, or maybe like the 16% increase in benefits. Do you know offhand how much that was the overall budget?
I think it was like 1.2 million. You know, like that was the new money. Yep.
2 to 3%.
Yep. So it was a lot. I did ask Nicole about that, and I believe that's what she shared with me. I mean, it's definitely a huge cost driver. I'm
1.2 million on
60.
50. What was our total?
It's 54, 56 million.
Right, but a 16% increase in benefits, when you hear it, what does that mean to our overall budget?
Right.
That would be around the low single digit, or 2 to 3%.
An additional $1 million.
Yeah, another $1 million on a $54 million budget.
Yep.
Gail?
Could you reflect a little bit on the teaching staff turnover from last year to this year, and what we might be anticipating for this coming year, and are we losing teaching staff to other places or only to retirement?
Yeah, certainly. So we had a lot of retirements, and we do lose a couple of staff members that are just choosing to either leave education or do something different or go to another district. But for the most part, our retention is very, very good. And we also have been able to recruit staff members, teachers specifically. This year, we recruited a lot of teachers from other districts. And so I feel like we hired a lot of really good people this school year.
Great.
Any other questions for Rebecca? And remote folks, I'm looking at you too, so just so you. Okay, Andrew, thank you. Thanks, Rebecca, and welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Andrew Jones, Assistant Superintendent. This is going to be my 4th year here in the district. And just to check, can everyone hear me okay? Great. So looking at the priorities for curriculum instruction, a lot of these priorities are really kind of woven together. And so I'll kind of go through a few themes. One is that, again, no new spending, so just maintaining budgets from the past for all of these different pieces. And a major focus of these is around instructional improvement and just building teacher capacity for both general instruction and also with equity and inclusion. And all those things tie in with the educational quality standards that you had learned a little bit about back in September, I believe. And so both of those are connected in that there's instructional improvement components of the educational quality standards, and there's equity inclusion components as well. And a key part of our ability to support teachers in building their ongoing capacity to provide high quality teaching and learning, and to implement these different components is the use of instructional coaches, which I believe I spoke about in the past. Can folks still hear me?
I can hear you, Andrew, but
okay,
maybe we just lost.
Does it say that yeah, it looks like something happened.
I don't know this.
Right.
No new money in the budget for these priorities.
Correct. Okay, I'll start there. Yeah,
Great.
No new money for these priorities. These priorities are really connected with just kind of generally helping to improve teaching and learning, both with the use of data, which connects with the STAR screener, and then professional development and professional learning and training for teachers. And then it also is going to help with our implementation of the educational quality standards that you learned about back in September, of which there's components related to just kind of general instructional improvement, such as utilization of learning targets, formative assessment, inquiry-based learning, things like that. That are all built into the forthcoming EQS. And then there's also equity and inclusion components within the EQS as well. And so our instructional coaches and equity and inclusion coaches are critical to the work that will be involved with effectively implementing those policies, and just generally with not just maintaining but improving the delivery of high quality teaching and learning. A lot of the research over the last kind of decade or so has really shown that having in-house experts in the form of instructional coaches is not only the most effective way, but also the most efficient way to provide professional development, as opposed to having to outsource it to consultants or to sending folks out to workshops or conferences, which can still be valuable for certain sorts of learning. But generally speaking, having instructional coaches really allows for the best quality professional development, which is what's going to provide teachers with the most up-to-date training and support so that they can continue to improve their craft. And so though they're all, again, kind of intertwined and around the concept of just kind of ongoing improvement and making sure that we have quality data to inform instructional decisions. Any questions on those priorities?
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, Sandra.
Andrew, this is Sandra. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the early literacy proficiency improvement that we're looking at. So in June, we're looking at a 90% reading proficiency by the end of 3rd grade. Do you know where we currently are, where we were in June?
Yep. So that goal that was crafted, John, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2021. And that was a goal that was set back then to strive for. And so I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was when I provided the district priorities update maybe a month or so ago. I had a little bit of information on our current 3rd grade ELA scores. and both comparing the VCAP data, which is the state data, with our STAR screener data, it was around 70%. And so we've made some pretty big gains in a short amount of time. So for comparison, compared to a year ago, we made it about 11% gain. And so, you know, we're on track to potentially get close to that. Can't say if it'll be 90% or not, but we've definitely made some pretty significant improvements over a short amount of time. We've made some instructional and curricular adjustments as well, related to what's called the science of reading. So making sure that we're putting more attention to phonics instruction, comprehension. And this is something else I talked about at our district priorities, is better embedding content into our early grades literacy instruction. So making sure that we have time for science and social studies so that students have exposure to that content knowledge and the vocabulary, which has been found to be tightly correlated with student comprehension and just generally improving their literacy skills. So as of now, I'd say we're on track to get close to that. But again, we'll have to see where we actually end up. And then related to that as well is Act 139, which was a new literacy act from last session. And a lot of what's required in there we're already doing, but some of those things include providing professional development to teachers on the science of reading, making sure that, universal screeners are used, which we have, which are the STAR 360 screeners for both ELA and mathematics. And then making sure that we're, using that data to inform the work that we're doing. So again, that's kind of rolled into kind of our broader instructional improvement efforts, but a lot of effort has been put in over the last few years to target early grades literacy, particularly in the realm of the science of reading.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Andrew, it's Kevin. On the column around the influence on expenditures, I think they all say no new increase in spending. Are we losing any funding that would need to be picked up with other funding in next year?
No, that's already happened. So ESSER funds that we were using for some positions sunsetted a while. Well, they're sunsetting now, but we had transitioned a year ago. And so for this year, no. And we continue to kind of utilize our Title II funds, which mostly are used for coaches, and we kind of move that money around depending on how much money we're getting each year, because that does fluctuate a little bit, not very much. We don't really gain or lose much of that per year. But when we do have a little bit, we can put a little more towards certain positions. So to answer your question directly, for this year, no, but in years past, yes.
Thank you.
I don't see other questions. Do we?
Actually, I do have another one, Andrew. This is Sandra again. Under equity and inclusion, let's see, that the goal is to create inclusive learning environments where all students are included, reflected, and affirmed in all aspects of the school environment. And I'm just really more curious about this. Do we know the demographics? I'm sure we know the demographics of our student population as compared to our staff, as far as having the students, that staff are reflecting, the students in the district when it comes to diversity.
I don't have data in front of me on that, so I guess I can't answer that fully.
Okay.
I would say, and again, this is that our teaching staff is no more diverse than our student population.
It's no more.
It is more.
It is more.
Yeah, more. Yeah, and I can say that with some confidence.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Jen, you're up. Thank you, Andrew. I have let our next agenda item know that we would probably get to that at 7:40. So we have 10 more minutes on this one, which should be just the right amount of time, Jen. So you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Cote, Director of Special Services, and this is my 17th year in our school district.
And how long in this position?
3.5 months.
Thank you.
It's going great, though. I'm enjoying it.
Good.
Okay, so the first priority for special services is to decrease the achievement gap for students with identified disabilities. This is important to ensure all students, regardless of their background or disability area or socioeconomic status, have equal access to quality education and the opportunity to reach their full potential. We continue to build capacity in this area with the number of Orton-Gillingham trained special educators. Orton-Gillingham is a multisensory literacy approach. About 35% of our licensed special educators have some level of Orton-Gillingham training. Our special education staff are also engaged in professional development and lesson studies with district coaches. And special educators continue to participate in professional learning communities to support general education teachers with planning for first instruction and next steps for instruction within the layers of support. The second priority is to build capacity within our schools to support students with more intensive learning needs. And this is important to allow them to access education effectively, reach their full potential and feel included, and build confidence by being provided the necessary accommodations and interventions they need. We are currently building our capacity. This year, we've added an additional classroom, a therapeutic classroom at Smiley. So we have 2 alternative classrooms, elementary classrooms in our district, and we have 1 middle school program at Browns River Middle School. As a district, we've also rebooted Responsive Classroom. This is a teaching and discipline approach that focus on social emotional learning to create a safe and engaging environment for students. Responsive Classroom also supports students with creating, teaching, and practicing effective whole school and classroom expectations and routines, and it also builds community. We continue to expand on our layers of support by utilizing our board certified behavior analyst to conduct behavior assessments, functional behavior assessments, create behavior intervention programs, train and supervise behavior interventionists. They monitor student progress, collect data, and make data-driven decisions about students' programs. And then John spoke a little bit about this at the beginning, but there are really long wait lists, 1 to 2 years for out-of-district placements, and some of our out-of-district placements in Vermont have closed. So regional directors and districts are looking to collaborate and share ideas on how to support students who need a more therapeutic setting or alternative environment. Many districts have started to create their own programs like we have in our district. And we're also considering how we're sharing our resources, between districts. For example, maybe tuitioning some students into our district if a district is in need of a placement for a student. The third priority we're focusing on is developing and increasing student independence so that the need for one-on-one adult support decreases. We continue to utilize our behavior interventionist and our board certified behavior analyst to support plans, identify target skills, and collect data, and develop fade out plans to decrease support and increase independence for students. We utilize Joelle Van Lent. She is a very well-known child psychologist here in Vermont to support staff, students, and families to foster resilience and provide high quality support to students. And we're building capacity by providing training this year to special education staff and paraeducators about understanding behavior and implementing behavior supports. Our board certified behavior analysts are providing that training. We want to continue to meet the needs of neurodivergent students. This is our fourth priority, and this is important to ensure all learners have equal opportunity to succeed. Staff are currently prioritizing, frequent praise and positive reinforcements, building students' individual strengths, providing sensory-friendly environments, and work as a team with family and providers. There's also high interest in our district about learning about neurodivergent learners. So many staff are currently signing up for professional development. During our November in-service, we're welcoming All Brains Belong. It's a nonprofit organization here in Vermont whose mission is to make life better for people of all brain types. And they will be providing our district staff with training, neurodiversity training. And then schools are also working with district occupational therapists to create sensory spaces outside the classroom to support student needs. And then the final priority is identify potential efficiencies in the special education support system. So working with staff around, what is specialized instruction and approaches that are unique to a learner's needs and profile. We're using a weighting scale system to determine level of student support and resource allocation, and ongoing reflection to ensure our systems and practices provide students with identified disabilities with what they need and deserve. Are there any questions?
So before I open it up to questions, because we're just focusing on budget at this point, we have a special education discussion later on in the year. We are now in a block grant situation. We're not getting specific money for students unless they are extraordinary needs. And correct me if I'm using the wrong language. So how do we continue to maintain the same level of services on less money?
Yeah, we're really looking at building capacity within and, and training for our staff. I share that we are having some of our staff train with the Wharton Gillingham, so a literacy approach. We're training staff with working with all different types of learners, including students that have more challenging behaviors. And then really utilizing our BCBAs and our behavior interventionists to provide ongoing support to staff through identifying targeted skills for students who need that extra support, and that's in the data collection, and being creative with the resources we have. We are a district that has, we have many special educators and SLPs and paraeducators, and just being really creative with how we utilize them.
Yeah, when we talk about maintaining it, it's all personnel driven, right? So increases in salary and insurance, that is going to make the budget go up. And trying to repurpose, we were contracting a lot of services. And so, reducing that, repurposing that money to put more money into building our own systems.
Other questions? Yeah.
Just to follow up to E's question, Jen, do you know the size of the block grant that you were trying to budget against?
I don't know that information off the top of my head. John, do you have that information?
We're not, they haven't even given it to us yet.
For next year, yeah.
We don't know what it is for next year.
There it is.
Yeah, we don't know it right now. Hopefully we get it by December, but there's no guarantee.
The guidance, it sounds like that, Jen, you have is basically to stay within our spend, and we'll hope for the best with the block grant number.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to go up based on an inflationary amount, but they can change. That can be changed. That could be changed legislatively if their money is not there. We're assuming that it's going to go up by an inflationary amount, but can't guarantee that right now.
And the hope is that we maintain our current budget to provide support for students. Again, we don't know what the block grant will be providing us. Fingers crossed it is a slight increase, but we never know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you, Jen. That was really informative and such a significant part of our educational system. So thank you. And Edie, I'm pleased to hear that we'll have more time and
Yeah.
board meeting coming up to talk about special education.
I think it's our first meeting in March.
That's awesome.
So,
Thank you.
great.
So I know you're moving on to the next piece, and I would say hopefully you see a theme, trying to stick with the services and the people that we have, not recreate, not increase anything. In past years, there's always been some new people or some new money, and we're really trying to, have the least impact on taxpayers as we can, and still offer a high quality educational system that meets all the legal requirements.
Great. Is there a finance committee meeting in October? It's not on the agenda.
I think our next one is in November. We're working on before we do the community forum. So we're going through our budgets right now, working on it with our department folks and principals for draft one. And that draft, just to let you know, is a draft with capital D, because there's a lot of information we don't have. So we usually try to offer that caveat, but that'll be in November.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everybody who presented.
Thank you all very
Really good
much.
questions from the board, and there will be lots of opportunities for board engagement, more directly in the finance committee meetings, but also at a board meeting probably in December on the budget. Okay, our next agenda item is the receiving the preliminary data from the superintendent focus groups and giving our feedback. So I'm going to welcome Hank Harris and Kathleen Nord to our board meeting. Welcome. We have heard from some folks remotely are getting a little bit of feedback when they talk, so we might mute the room for when you're presenting, and then we'll turn it back on when you need to hear from us too. So the floor is yours. And if you would just, you'll talk about all the meetings that you've had and all that. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening, and it's wonderful to be here with you and see some familiar faces and some familiar names for those of you who we can't see right now. I just quickly wanted to say what a pleasure it was for both Hank and I to have the opportunity to engage with your community, with your staff, with parents, and with patrons. We now have completed our engagement phase of your search. And we had, as you know, the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with each of the 15 board members. We heard from more than 200 respondents via the survey that was administered. And we also heard actually directly from nearly 100 people in our 15 focus groups. And those focus groups, you all did an excellent job making sure that there was a wide variety of stakeholders that we had the opportunity to engage with and hear from. And so we learned a lot, and we'll be talking more, I think, at another opportunity about specifically what we learned. But what I want to assure you is that what we learned really informed the draft criteria document that we're going to be discussing in a few minutes. And I am quite hopeful and cautiously optimistic that you see in that document a reflection of what you know about your district and what you feel is important to you all, because that's what we're striving for. So through our engagement work, we heard a lot about the many great things that are happening in your district and in your broader community that helped inform the criteria document. And it also is going to be super helpful as we go out and we begin recruiting. It's going to make the position one that's very enticing to people, and folks are going to get excited. This is a really a really interesting, exciting position that people are going to have the opportunity to apply for. We also learned a lot about the challenges that are facing your district. They're facing districts throughout the state of Vermont, many of the challenges that were shared with us. And there also are some specific things that are happening within the district that it'll be important for us to let prospective applicants and your next superintendent know about so that they can be prepared to address those things. And again, we hope that you see some of those things reflected in the criteria document. Our engagement also asks the question, what are the qualities and characteristics, the skills, the experiences, the backgrounds, the attributes that you believe it's really important for your next superintendent to bring to the position? And those are the things that we've called out really intentionally in the draft criteria document. And so the document itself is not a job description. It doesn't cover the scope of all the duties, the many, many things that I'm sure John could attest a superintendent has to do and know. But it's aspirational. And, this is what we hope will be a reflection of what you all want to see in your next superintendent. So let me now, if you don't mind, just talk about what Hank and I would like to suggest we have for our process with our time with you this evening. So you have been provided a draft of that criteria document in advance, and Hank is going to be screen sharing. He and I are going to be taking notes as we walk through this process with you. As I said, it's a draft document, and we hope you've had a chance to dig into it a bit. We are going to be asking 3 questions. I'm going to ask the first 2 questions, and Hank is going to ask the last one. And I think it will work best if you don't object, Edie. We'd like to pose the question, and then we'd like to ask that you facilitate the conversation. So if you could please call on board members as they have input to offer, if they have a question or input to share. Does that seem like something that would work? Awesome, thank you. I see your thumbs up. So Hank, do you want to talk through kind of how the document that you'll be sharing is organized? Why don't we do that before I ask the first question?
And Hank, if you could make it more full screen, that would be helpful on our end.
You bet. Let me do that. And before I do that, I want to share that I put this document up. This is what's in your packet. We're going to work off a document that is almost identical with one exception, which is that I'm going to put a new document up that doesn't have the bullet points, that actually has letters. I'm going to do that because it's actually easier for our work together to refer to things by letters than by the 5th bullet point down. But I'm really careful that I'm calling this out because the reason why we don't use letters or numbers in the document is because we don't want to suggest that there is a rank order or a priority. So when the document gets created in a public and is out there in the public space, there'll be the bullet points that you see. So I'm going to change those to letters, but I want to be clear, we're only doing that for the ease of conversation today so that we can call out a letter and go to it. Does that make sense? So let me open up. Bear with me. Okay, and let me go to that and make that larger is what I should say. How is that? Is that better, or do you need more?
More, please.
More would be better.
Okay.
More cowbell. Yeah. John's getting punchy.
Does that need more, or is that good?
I didn't change it all in this room.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yes.
Is that making a difference?
No. So I think you have to go right into that document and make it bigger on that document page, not on the screen that you're.
Bottom right corner slider.
Yeah, I thought I was doing that. Bear with me. I'm sorry. And I know this is old for you. And
It's okay, Hank. Let me just go ahead and circle back and just give a little more context about the process. So as Hank is getting that document ready, I'll just say, this is the second time we'll be working together on this document. We'll be talking through those 3 questions that you saw in the email that the board.
There you go.
Oh, beautiful, Hank.
thank you. Sorry about that.
There you go. Okay, good deal. And then Hank and I, as I said, will be taking notes while you all are discussing in response to those questions. And then he and I will all of the input from tonight's discussion, and we will further revise the draft. And then we intend to bring back a finished product. We hope it will be a finished product for your consideration at your next meeting on October 28th. And at that point, the hope and plan would be for you to adopt that criteria document and for us to begin the process of recruiting and posting the position. So, any questions before I introduce the first question?
I think we're good.
Okay, terrific. So you can see the document on your screen. You can see that there are letters associated with what had been bullet points. And so now the first question is, are there things in this draft document that should be omitted? Anything that's in there that should be omitted?
And remote folks, you're not all on the screen, so put your hand up and that'll bring you right up onto the screen if you have something that you want to add. Your virtual hand, I mean. Anyone in the room see anything on the document that needs to be omitted? I'm not seeing any reaction to that at all.
Well, that's good. And this often is the easiest question. So we're happy that there's nothing in there that feels out of place. So that's a great thing. So let's go ahead and move on. And we can certainly circle back if later something occurs to someone and we need to revisit that issue. But the second question is, are there things not in this draft that should be added?
I had a few folks reach out to me before the meeting, so I know that people have things they'd like to add in here.
Great.
Anybody want to raise their hand and start that? Go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
I thought there might be a major section missing around the qualities that we need to maintain the superintendent board relationship, around our policy governance model. Somebody who can work in that environment, can be fully accountable for delegated day-to-day operations, isn't going to be expecting that the board provide incremental decisions and guidance around that type of thing. And I might have missed the sub-bullet, but I didn't see anything in there that really talked about that part of the role.
Thanks, Kevin. And that definitely was something that came through loud and clear in the engagement and our conversations with the board. So noted.
Go ahead, Katie.
So let's see, it is bullet number or letter C, brings sophistication and language immersion in early childhood education and career technical education. And this was something I just mentioned to Edie, and it could be a broader board conversation to think about. But a lot of the feedback that I had received was about outdoor education and using the outdoor classrooms and looking for real leadership in bringing that sort of really immersed into the academic experience for the students in this district. So I wasn't initially imagining that as being part of this, but when I saw that, language immersion was specifically mentioned and technical education was specifically mentioned, I just wondered if everybody else would consider or want to see that as part of this. Because it's not really, it exists in different parts of our schools, and there's infrastructure in other parts of our schools, but there isn't, other than a general outdoor, like a love of the outdoors and trying to integrate that, there's not a real mission around that. And I don't know if we want to identify that as something for someone to be looking toward.
I have thoughts, but I'm going to allow other folks to have their thoughts first.
Can you explain what you mean by an outdoor classroom? We are in Vermont.
So we have 3, I think, of our elementary schools that have significant outdoor, 3 of our 5 significant outdoor programming.
Right. Yeah,
And others have,
and
but also outdoor learning. And they actually have spaces in the woods where they do different learning activities and opportunities. And then we do that in some of our middle school, not as much in our middle schools, but there's a lot of outdoor learning opportunities embedded throughout our district. And so the question is, does that rise to, it should be one of these items? I mean, I think that's.
I would support it being one of our items. I know we're not supposed to be wordsmithing, but I couldn't get past the word sophistication. I wonder what that is in that item.
That is wordsmithing, definitely.
But since the question's asked, I do want to respond to that. We were intentional about that word. You might have expected to see experience. And we didn't put experience in there because we didn't necessarily hear that they had to have experience deeply in all 3 of those, but they had to have a certain knowledge level to come to the table, or the ability to even, maybe not the ability, but a knowledge level that they could come and they could understand and they could articulate. Not every district has language immersion. Most have, the others, but not all. So that's where that word came from. But thank you for making the point about this not being wordsmithing, because we don't want to do that piece, but thank you for surfacing that.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So for me on that bullet 1C, even with the inclusion of the outdoor learning space, I felt like those examples are things that we've worked through either recently or are working through them now, but they're examples of things that we've taken up and I would say aggressively introduced, or a leader in that area. It's kind of like there's going to be other examples 5 years from now that we need the same quality to address them. So I think citing those specific examples may erode the point that we were trying to get across.
Yeah. So I'm just going to build on that because you kind of teed it up. I was going with innovative and non-traditional opportunities in education. I feel like that's such as, yeah. But these are, yeah. So that's kind of the bigger picture and what we try to foster here. But yeah, that's.
In Western EDU and having examples, as you said, such as, and if we do have examples, do we have outdoor education?
So these are 3 things that are really important to our district at this moment. And I think it would hinder our district to bring in somebody who isn't good at these things right now. It would hinder our progress in these areas, right? Or somebody who isn't interested and excited and dedicated to continuing to foster these things. So I think maybe that's why they're there. But Yeah, so that, I think it's, maybe it's 2 bullet points. I don't know. Maybe it's adding that, you know, non-traditional innovation. Go ahead, Heather.
I'm inclined to agree with Katie on this one because I think that we as a district prioritized outdoor education at one point. We put a lot of money into doing it and a lot of people worked really hard on it. And I think
Post-COVID,
yeah. And I think that to have that as something that we would want our future superintendent to have some knowledge about isn't a horrible thing because it's like they're not being used as much as they should. And there are parents in the community that I have heard from too that are also wondering why we're not doing this more often. So to have a candidate who has knowledge in this area, I think would be helpful as opposed to has no idea how to go about it or enthusiasm.
Go ahead, Tom.
I have a question, and I guess it's just because I'm so new to the board. I'm Tom first. Did John bring any of this stuff to us? Is he a shopsmith, or he speaks 3 or 4 different languages? And is a specialist in early childhood education? I don't know if the superintendent needs, you know, a lot of proficiencies in these specific areas. And I understand the interest, you know, in maintaining programs that are already there, and an interest in, you know, continuing to develop them, but I'm not sure that it's like a deal breaker if someone doesn't, but if they're willing to, I like the wording that you used, EDP, willing to take on innovative, you know, and creative sorts of opportunities for our students. It's such as these 3 examples. Sounds great, but it doesn't seem like, you know, I would want to restrict, you know, the candidates if they don't have experience. And that's why, going back to the word, you know, this idea of sophistication versus experience, you know, an openness or willingness to pursue innovative kinds of learning opportunities, that seems reasonable. As a requirement, I'm not sure it really is great.
Sarah?
It's to build on what Tom is saying. Why wouldn't we we want somebody who's going to champion innovation while building on what we're doing for literacy. Like, I don't see literacy in here at all, and it is a major priority in our district because of what we are all seeing. So why wouldn't we, not wordsmithing, I'm adding bullets to just to say innovative and not just status quo, but champion what we're already doing because we need to do better. Right?
I just want to add that I actually read early childhood education as literacy. I completely thought it had literacy there because I just have made that leap in my brain.
I actually thought about it too, like where's literacy, and I just well, I guess it's part of our construction.
I think the high school, who
I
cares?
didn't even read, I just thought it said early childhood, like in my head education said literacy. Excellent point.
Right.
So Hank and Kathleen, how is this conversation helping to build the document? Are you looking for us to come to a consensus on this, or are you going to take this feedback and bring us back something else in 2 weeks? I'm not sure how to lead us through. I'm happy to keep calling on people. I'm just not sure what the next steps are. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I was going to say thank you for that question, Edie. Kathleen, do you want to take that or yeah.
So we're taking notes on the background, and I'm hearing things that I think will allow us to make some adjustments. But one of the things offline that I was just playing with is bring sophistication and a willingness to innovate in areas such as language immersion, early childhood education, outdoor education, and career and technical education. And then I also made note of Kevin's earlier point around including adding something specifically around policy governance and board superintendent relationship. And then also heard an interest, and I don't know that you've reached consensus yet, but wanting to see literacy called out more specifically. It seems like somewhere we have something, and I apologize because I don't have the document where I'm able to move it just yet. Somewhere there's research-based practices. I'm wondering if literacy might be something we work in more explicitly there. Help me out here. Do you feel like we've got enough that we can recraft that piece to capture that innovation concept and also bring in the outdoor education? I think one of the things I heard is that the things that we're called out are things that are currently representative of important initiatives that are underway in the district. And so it's going to be highlighting those.
Yeah, so, I mean, just like reading through, so 1B, I think in my brain covers literacy, covers outdoor education in our community, right? And like, I feel like that's a big bucket, 1B. And it takes understanding, I mean, some of it is understanding our community and some of it is what do we need to do for student future success. So I think if we take any specific letter, right, and try to add more to it without looking at the bigger document, we might be clouding it up. So just want to kind of draw that as a, like, is it in there? Let's look and see if it's in there. If it's in there, it's great. And if it's not in there, let's add it in. Go ahead, Gail.
But I would agree that in B is where logically any one of those could be.
Yes.
I mean, in B, all what you're doing is expanding academic and co-curricular programs. Well, that's everything, particularly at the academic level. So if you want to be specific, you could be specific there, and you wouldn't need it maybe other places. But those are words. You got the words. We don't have the words.
So
Remind me. I was just about to say, remind me what question we're answering right now.
Right. So let's do that because we've without cutting off that conversation, I want to make sure that we're surfacing other topics that fall under the question. And the question that Kathleen now is on is, are there any items or concepts or notions that you would have wanted to see reflected on the document that you don't see?
Yep. So we said innovation, policy, governance, outdoor education. Yeah.
I'd actually like to get John's take if he thinks there's anything missing since you're currently in the seat and you probably have more knowledge about this than anybody.
That's a good question. I'd say the feedback that people have shared, I think is important. Early literacy is something that stuck out to me that wasn't explicit in here. And then maybe I missed it, but not like a lot about equity and inclusion. So those are the two pieces that, that came to mind. And I guess the last one I would say is a good fiscal manager is going to be really important. And maybe that's in there, but I didn't glean it.
Yeah, that was intended to be captured in D. Oh, wait, where is that? Go back up if you would, Hank. Under 1D.
Very good. I like prudently.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear all the whispers, but we're commenting on how much we like some of the words that you've chosen. So just want to make sure you're getting that feedback too. Other thoughts on anything else that's missing?
Did any, I defer to my colleague Gail in terms of words, but in the top drawer kind of stuff out today. I don't know exactly what that means.
It's all right. We're not going to wordsmith it, but thanks for pointing it out.
I told you weren't going to do it.
Yes, Kevin.
I don't know if others felt like, but we have one of the larger districts in the state. We've taken a leadership role, perhaps due to tenure or just perhaps that we're in a good position overall. But I felt like that component of what we want in our district to continue to be a leader amongst other superintendents or other districts that we would praise it. I feel like that came through.
You didn't feel like it came through? You did? You didn't?
Yes, missing.
Like that becomes earned over time, but I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's a leading, right? You know, are we going to be okay with, right? Somebody with 2 years or 20 years, right? To me, I think having that type of experience is needed if we want to maintain, but maybe we don't, right? It's not important to us.
Can I take that a little bit of a different direction just to have a conversation about it? Right now, there is a big push regionally to make decisions together and to go forward regionally together. So maybe something about regional cooperation would be what we're looking for. Somebody who doesn't need to be the bigger part of the whole. Is that fair? Is that capturable? I'm looking to you, Hank and Kathleen. Okay, because there were nods around the room.
So that concept of regional cooperation or
values regional cooperation, or somewhere, not to wordsmith, but that's kind of what we're looking. Yeah, we're looking at. I'm gonna do my best not to get on my speaker's box, but local control has been the way we make decisions in Vermont, and there is a push in our region to do things more collectively, and we would like to have our district continue to be collaborative with other districts.
Yeah.
I don't know, where would you put that?
Where would I put that? Approachable, strategic, and connected leader.
Yeah.
And let's not you worry so much about where things get put. Kathleen and I can do that in our revisions.
Great.
But that is where I would put it. I was looking to see if it was there actually, because that's definitely something that came up in the engagement, was the fact that your district has been out there in front for other districts and in the state.
I do want to ask a question on that before we move forward, because I think that is something that the board should wrestle with just for a few minutes. The notion of somebody who will come in and be a leader among leaders of superintendents suggests to me that that person is not a rookie superintendent. In our conversations with stakeholders, there were very few people who kind of insisted that the next superintendent must come from a superintendency. So I pose that question back to you. If we put that in there, it certainly gives me a sense reading it that you are looking for an experienced superintendent in this role. And maybe you are, but that didn't come through in our data collection. And it will be a message that's read by folks who are aspiring to this role. And so I just think it's worth thinking about collectively. And I don't have a horse in this fight. Kathleen and I want to reflect what the will of the board is, but we want to hear what the will of the board is with respect to that.
Go ahead, Heather.
I'd say that I also think that oftentimes it comes to, yes, experience, but also personality of somebody. Like, you can be, hey, super experienced, but not like sticking your nose out and being the first one to say something. You can have little experience, feel confident enough to speak up in front of a group and be the first one to say something. So I think that I do hear what you're saying, Hank, but I think that there might be a right candidate out there who has less experience, but the right personality that could take on that role.
Do you have a hand up?
I mean,
I saw a hand over there.
Yeah, so having somebody that has experience in the game is going to give them the confidence to go to these regional meetings and step up and say, hey, no, this is what we are doing and how we believe at MMU we should proceed. And if someone doesn't have that much experience in those types of meetings, then I'm not sure they'll know how to navigate those regional meetings.
My take to this, if we're getting somebody from the outside, you know, they probably have to have some experience, I think, where maybe someone who's already familiar with the district, maybe a principal in a couple of schools in the district and has been elevating, or a district close by and already knows the areas, like, you know, maybe they don't have to have it directly super. So I think it's going to kind of determine if they're coming from, you know, another state or something, in my opinion, whether, you know, how much experience they would need already. That's sort of my thought.
I'm scanning. Yep.
Yeah, I just agree. I think with what I'm hearing, I think a candidate could have zero superintendent experience and still exhibit that quality. We saw on the special services report earlier today, one of the goals was to work collaboratively with regional, right? You can get that experience as a principal, as a director of your domain, and still, I think, be qualified to be a superintendent. So I don't think we're eliminating, per se, a rookie superintendent by saying that they need to be able to work or want, you know, desire to work outside of their organization for achieving common goals.
I think it would be important if this was added to be an emphasis on applicable skills, not necessarily experience. Because I agree with what Heather was saying, how experience and skills and personality can be very separate. So I think by saying like applicable skills in leadership or like ability to learn how to be a leader would be more important than like experience as a superintendent.
So I'm hearing a consensus that we're not looking necessarily for an experienced superintendent, but we're looking for somebody who can work collaboratively in the region. Is that fair? Okay.
Hank, could you explain why you think that phrase would do something to our pool of applicants?
I'm not sure that I can any more than I tried to before. Kathleen, do you want to help me out?
Yeah, I don't at all think that a phrase that says work collaboratively within the region would be off-putting or would dissuade a less experienced person from applying. I think a phrase that said something like be a leader amongst other superintendents in the region, or you know, serve as a model for other leaders in the state. Something like that would definitely convey that you're looking for someone more experienced. And that's not where I felt like the conversation went. It seemed as though you were moving more towards wanting someone who would come in and be able to engage in collaborative problem solving and decision making with other leaders in the region. And I don't think that's going to be off-putting to applicants in the same way that being kind of the on the front of the line would be.
Anything else missing from the document? And Lisa, Susan, Ethan, Stu, anything you have to add, don't hesitate. I think we're ready for question 3.
If there is one.
So I'll take the lead on the third one. The third one is there anything that you would want to see changed? Now let me actually make a statement first. I am so appreciative of the board. You know, when Kathleen and I do this, we send an email typically ahead of time to the boards, as we did with you. And we say we try not to get into the wordsmithing. And I think this board, more than any other board we've ever worked with, really read that and took heed of that. And so, right, Kathleen? So we often have to kind of pull back from a natural tendency, lots of us have, to get into wordsmithing. And I really appreciate that you've all monitored yourselves to not go there. And I say that right now because the third question is the most likely to land us there. So we just want to be sort of mindful of that. The third question does ask is there anything that's there that is there and should be there, but should be changed in terms of the sense that it's making, and dare I say it, maybe a word that might throw somebody off. And so I realize I'm asking you not to wordsmith. At the same time, it might feel like I'm asking you to wordsmith, but you're all really bright people. So I think you can go with what I'm asking. Is there anything that is there but needs to be shifted a little bit?
So we missed a lot of what you just said because we got kicked out of the meeting. Our whole room did, but we appreciate the praise. And no. I think that it was recorded, so everybody now will go back and watch the recording. It just was recorded without us.
Got it. Okay. You want me to repeat it, or did you get the gist? I heard you heard the praise part.
We heard you. We heard you beginning to praise us, and then as we were coming back in, you said, "Do we need to shift anything around?" So,
oh my gosh.
I think we really want you to repeat that praise, Hank. So
I don't. I just want to know what you mean by shift anything around. What is that?
All right. So I'm gonna repeat, even though I encourage us all to go home and rewatch this moment that we missed. Here's the praise is this. When Kathleen and I do this work, we will always do what we did with you as a board, and we'll send a message ahead of time asking or cautioning that we don't really want to spend our hour fully. No, not fully. We don't want to spend our hour getting into the wordsmith mode. And the praise is that most of the time, some people read that, some people attend to it, some people don't. And we spend usually in these meetings a fair amount of time pulling people away from the wordsmithing. And the praise was that you have all self-monitored in a really impressive way, which doesn't surprise us having worked with you now for a few months. But we appreciate that we didn't have to pull you back. You pulled yourselves back, you monitor that, and you understood the value of high-level talk rather than wordsmith talk. So that's the praise and that's the gratitude. Did you hear it this time?
Thank you. Appreciate you repeating it.
Thank you. And so, and why that's particularly important to say right now is the third question is the one that is the riskiest in terms of moving into wordsmith. Because the question of number 3 is, here's the question. Is there anything you could change that's already on the document? In other words, are there concepts, ideas, bullets that are the right substance, but maybe there's something that, maybe there's a word or 2 words that change it or could be changed to make it better. And I realize that I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth right now. I'm asking you not to wordsmith. At the same time, I'm giving you a task that feels a little bit like wordsmithing. But because you're all, and maybe you heard me say this already a few minutes ago, but you're a really sharp board. So you can take what I'm saying and understand I'm asking you to do 2 sort of contradictory things. We don't want to get deep into the wordsmithing, but Kathleen and I do want to hear if there's any items here that are content-wise correct, but need to go through a little bit of adjustment. And I'll leave it there.
Can I ask a question, Hank, before we open it up?
Yeah.
Is this document, as it stands, like whatever the final version of it is, going to be used as part of the recruiting tools in its
very
whole-
much.
Okay.
Very much so. This is the most important document in the recruiting process. It's candidates will see this. And
so this is how we're being represented. Our district is being represented to the world in what we value.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's helpful.
Yes, and it also will be used in developing interview questions, that reflect the board's priorities and what your needs are. And it will be used by the board as you are assessing the degree to which applicants or interviewees align and meet the established criteria. So it's a document you're going to be using a lot, and so we need to get it right.
All right, let the wordsmithing begin. Go ahead, Gail.
I'm not, is this a standalone document? When the word goes out that Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District, we're looking for a superintendent, is there a background that goes with that? Does everybody know this is part of Southern California?
So yes and yes, it's a standalone document, and Kathleen and I will engage in conversations with candidates either because we've reached out to them to talk to them about Mount Mansfield, they've reached out to us. Most candidates who are going to be serious applicants are going to have a conversation with us where we talk about what's behind this. So it's both a standalone and there's a context that we share verbally when we have conversations with candidates.
And Hank also, via the e-blast that is sent out with this document, will provide a really rich description of the district, of the region, in the e-blast itself. So yes, it's standalone in terms of what the district is looking for, but people will also get more information about the district. Oftentimes we'll include links to the strategic plan or to other important documents.
So you'll be creating that live history context, so to speak.
Yes.
Yep, sure will.
Well, I don't want to belabor this top drawer, but it still bothers me. And only because it's within the context of this particular district, which happens to be one of the wealthier counties and districts in all of the state. And so I guess I don't want a candidate who feels like, they're seeking out, the richest district to join. Do you know what I mean?
Which letter are you talking about?
This is one.
So that's
E. Yeah.
One.
So I know it's supposed to be talented, right?
Yep.
But.
So thank you. Yeah. And so I'm going to stop. So thank you. And you did exactly what we're asking you to do. Let's not now as a group figure out what a better word is. Let's allow, if you're all right with that, Kathleen and I to go back. I think it's reasonable that if there's even one board member that finds a particular word, unless you want to argue about it, but I think we can find another word. You did a really good job explaining why that word just didn't sit right with you, but you like, I think I'm paraphrasing you, but I think you like the sense of it, but we want to be careful about that term.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have something to say? Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think I'll do as good of a job going right up to that line and not crossing over. But we talked about it earlier, the fiscal one, 1D, prudently stewarding finances, to me implies that they're like given a budget versus developing a budget. I know some school districts, the finances are different, right? They're more allocated than developed. And I feel like that can be written differently to have more like greater responsibility, control, whatever, of the budget process.
Yeah, in Vermont, we're given a blank slate and we do the full developing. And the state has to, if it passes in our district, the state has to give us the money to spend. So whether that is the the way it goes long-term, that's another story. That's how it is today. So that's important. Great.
Thank you.
Do you have something? Okay. One thing that I want to make sure is really clear and in here is that our superintendent is very hands-on. And I don't know, because we don't have a lot of, and we've talked about this, we don't have a lot of depth in our district leadership and in our, so I just want to make sure that that hands-on piece is really clear and that folks who apply aren't expecting to just be managerial, because that's not how things work here. Right, John?
One G could be expanded upon.
1G. Yeah.
I definitely got the feeling though that it was looking for somebody who was going to engage with staff and be present in schools. I'm not my battery guy, but just there were words in there that made me really feel like that point came across, like someone who wasn't in a tower managing, but engaging.
Yeah.
Engaging.
It's probably 3 A, B, C, D, E, maybe. But I think it's more than that, right? It's more than just being present in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
Are you referring to the last point, Evie, the leads by Julie and model service?
I think that's the one that somebody said could be beefed up, perhaps. But I think it's more direct than that. And maybe this was the previous what's missing, but yeah.
I think for me, it was that is seen by, is relatable to, and is accessible to students, staff, and families. Whether that sentiment stands alone or that's something that is expanded upon. When I read it, I felt like that's someone who is willing to engage.
Yeah. And for me, like what I'm talking about is like John has to be a principal sometimes,
Right.
Because there aren't people who can step in not much of the time, some of the time. So it's that kind of hands-on, right? It's our finance director develops the budget with John, right? We're not expecting that person to just, so it's more, it's a little bit more. So.
Can I call out that this is like asking us to clone John, right? This is exactly the way this is written. This is like, if you don't present us with a John, we aren't gonna hire a superintendent, and that makes me a little concerned. Not that you don't have big shoes to fill or anything, John.
So I read it and said, wow, I would love to find this person, right? Because for me, this is aspirational. This is asking for everything that we want. And then it will eventually come to us, hopefully not, but probably to say, okay, they have 70% of this, or they have 90%, whatever it is. And somebody has 90% in this piece and 90% in this piece. And it's up to us to figure out which that best fit is. But yeah, I had the same, I'm like, yes, I want this person. Who is this person? This is,
Yeah, but I think a better question for John is, would you apply?
Here, yeah, in a minute. I've told them.
Why are you leaving? I'm teasing. Go ahead.
I think what Tara's point was, we should make sure we're thinking forward, not backwards. And, are there areas where we want the district to go that would benefit by having different qualities than what we currently have?
That's exactly what I said.
Okay. Word for word. But like, right, what are the challenges that we're gonna have in the next 1, 5, 10 years that we need to make sure we have somebody that, if we feel like we could navigate whatever we anticipate with these attributes, then we're good, but we should be thinking about it from that perspective.
I would like somewhere in there to say something with, collaborating with the town of some sort because I came from a district where they've added 1,000 houses across the street from an elementary school. And it took us 18 months to very quickly adapt for 1,000 families to be added to that district. And so, it was over 18 months they built 1,000 homes. And so, not saying Vermont's growing like that or anything like that, but there's.
Yeah. So is that covered in 3D? Or does it need to be 3D? Can you scroll on that, Hank?
To 3D? I'm sorry, I thought you said.
That's okay.
Public, private, and nonprofit partnerships.
Yep, that's that.
Okay. That's the.
Kevin, do you have any idea how we would word something like that, where we're looking for somebody that, it's like, how would you put that into this piece?
So read all of 3, because in my mind, that section covers the strategic goals and initiatives. Like, I don't know, for me, that was the piece that made me think it was more looking forward, right? Involving in policy development, strategic goals, initiatives. So like that was the piece that made me feel like this was forward looking and not static.
I agree with that, and I think status quo.
Yeah, that's kind of, I asked.
I don't agree that it's future thinking.
Yeah. That's all stuff I feel like part of the future thinking needs to be things we're not even thinking about, like what, to build up on what Kevin said. So like all this is familiar. And like we know these, where it's like we don't know what we don't know. So like how do we how would you ask that question or pose that or
I think we brought up a couple examples, being innovative, being collaborative with other regions, right? And, not being in a status quo type of mode is what has kept us maybe through and where we're trying to get to. But I just think probably more of just making sure that we're not too biased towards finding the exact replica and allowing ourselves to think about the future.
Inspires joyfulness sounds like political. Isn't that what we have now at the national level? A joyful.
We're gonna listen and move on. We're not getting into a national politics conversation. Other thoughts? Thank you, Gail. Are you getting what you need, Kathleen and Hank? Okay. Do we have more feedback before we?
I think it would be helpful if we could just take a moment. I know we just have maybe 2 more minutes, just to make sure that we've captured the big ideas that have been surfaced. And Hank, are you okay with that? I can quickly review my notes.
That'd be great.
And if I miss anything, then please jump in. So I think this is my first page. So certainly wanting to make sure we call out superintendent board relations, policy governance, and the fact that the superintendent needs to be independently functioning day to day. Some question about how to convey that concept of innovation. We want to make sure that early literacy, I guess we need to know, is that captured adequately in the bullet under 1 that speaks to curriculum? Hey, can you screen that up and people can look at that? And
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback from somebody.
There's a lot of feedback.
So if you're not muted, right up.
Did that make it better or worse, or not change anything?
I think it's better now. For me. Yeah. Okay. So continuing on. So hopefully the early literacy is covered under B around academic, expanding academic programs. But if not, then we need to clarify that. We want to capture that concept around regional collaboration and cooperation. Rework the prudently stewarding finances phrase to make sure that it's more explicit that the responsibilities also include the actual development of the budget itself. Going back to 1G and the leads by doing, is there a way to make it more explicit that there's actually like a hands-on aspect of that? And then under 3, do we need to call out something more around forward-thinking or future-oriented, or is that clear enough there? So those are the things that I picked up. Hank, what did I miss?
My list is your list, Kathleen.
Oh, top drawer. You want to get rid of top drawer and come up with something else?
Also, the equity piece, I feel like
the equity piece. I don't know if you saw, and I think there are places where we can speak more to that issue. It certainly was in section 1. Can you go back up there, Hank? Around Hank, can you go back up to section 1?
Yeah. Is it director? There's one screen that is not muted, and I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't know if others are as well.
Yeah, it's the same thing as what was happening earlier, and I think it's there's just a lot of sensitivity in that room. So if you're next to a mic, you can pick up anything.
So there's the issue of equitable resource allocation, but we can certainly look for other places to call out equity, perhaps in F, around decision making, like bring in something around attending to the needs of students who've been historically underserved.
Is that where does the board? Is there energy around that from the board for us to do that?
I don't know if that's
It's less around underserved, and it's more around a commitment to equity. It's
more philosophical.
Can you hear Katie?
Oh, it's more philosophical. I feel like that part is what's missing.
And so I guess
also
the point is that like a board, a shared board goal, and
it's part of the district quality standards, education quality standards in Vermont. So that are coming out for next year. I mean, it's been a district philosophy for a number of years, but it's also now. So.
Okay, great. Is there something that somebody can send us about the standards, and maybe we can think about where best to reference that?
You want me to do that? Yeah, I can give it to Rebecca. That would be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, we'll do that.
Terrific.
Great. So we will come back to you on the 28th, but we will have an advanced copy several days before. And I might also recommend that you put that in public space or on the website so that community members have a chance to see that, and if they feel called upon to offer their public testimony, perhaps at the meeting on the 28th.
Great. So whenever you get it to us, we'll get it on the website for folks. We'll just put that on the landing page, and we'll post it so that folks can know to take a look and to give us feedback at that meeting. Yes, Kevin?
I just have one other question about the process that I was trying to figure out. So to validate that what we have here represents the 300 people that we heard from, is there any way of showing that to us, or do we just put faith in the process that the surveys and the interviews all resulted in what we have here?
Kathleen, I was looking at you. I thought you wanted to take that. Are you looking at me?
I am looking at you because I gave it to you, and I'm wondering if you want to talk about what you're going to do with it.
So the question is, in terms of like, for lack of better, like checking our work to make sure that we provided you.
I think what we can say is that we went through and analyzed all of that information and walked away with some key findings that informed our criteria document. And we're more than happy to share with you those key findings. And in fact, it's not necessarily written in a super eloquent fashion. It's kind of in a bullet point fashion, but I did just provide that to Hank and suggested that he could bring that to the HR committee when meeting with them on Wednesday. And I don't think there'll be any surprises there. And I think it'll be obvious that the feedback is reflected in this document, but yeah.
Great. That was going to be my recommendation. So great.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will get a document at some point in the next 2 weeks. We'll post it on the website. We'll look for comment from the community. Anybody wants to share that with us, the board will have an opportunity to review it prior to the meeting. We'll finalize it at the meeting on the 28th, and then we are going to ask Hank and Kathleen to create the perfect superintendent for us and bring them to us on a silver platter. Sounds like a plan. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I think we're ready for the next agenda item.
Thank you for having us. Good work.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, party.
Good night. Thanks.
Ethan, we have one owl muted and the other one on in here. How is the sound, or is it still?
Well, now the sound of my space just got loud. That was much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You can hear me.
Can you hear Jimmy?
Oh,
Yeah, you can hear everyone. It's, the closer you are to a mic, the better. But it's also just that, and maybe it's the plastic tables. But
Yeah, my table is loud. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best not to bang on it.
yeah, there is like a
Okay.
little bit of background, but I think it might just be that mic that's next to you, Edie and John. But it's really hardest when someone's trying to talk. I noticed Andrew had the same issue where he had to keep raising his voice to sort of talk over it.
All right, while you're unmuted, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 23rd?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from September 23rd.
Thanks, Ethan. Can I get a second? Thank you, Heather. Any discussion on the minutes from September 23rd? All in favor, thumb, aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, unanimously approved. Thank you. Committee reports. I think we just had an HR committee meeting update for the last hour. I will say that our negotiations for our 2 contracts are also starting this year. So we have meetings this month with our teacher team and our staff team who are negotiating contracts. So the HR committee is busy this year, and it was lovely to see Rebecca here tonight. Now she's gone. So I think that's the HR report. Katie, do you have anything from?
I bet Rebecca's going to rewatch this video for that compliment. The Community Engagement Committee met last week. We discussed how our outreach efforts went, and we realized that like the most successful outreach happened when a group of people went to MMU to follow up on Jericho's new town meeting structure. So they had a town meeting and they were able to engage with a lot of people there. I think the numbers were like 5 to 8 people, and all of the other engagements included 2 people. So there were 2 engagement sessions with 0 people, which allowed for us to engage, but not with our community. So we really are realizing our best results are going to be when we are going to places. So that may mean just trying to either send somebody who's already going to a select board meeting to maybe just give a message from the school board, or a community member who can say, like, I just want to make sure that I encourage everybody to check in and watch this video, or going ourselves, or not video, but recording of the meeting, and to keep people apprised of this effort for the search, I think. So we're going to try to keep our eyes and ears out, but again, like, we look to all of you in your towns. If you want to engage, we can provide you with information that should be going out, but we all need to be looking for those opportunities. And then secondly, most of you, well, you may not have, but in the student rep search, we just have so many like great students who want to participate in what we're doing. And so, and Mr. Weston and myself trying to let them know they'll have some leadership role somewhere in the district just for putting themselves out there. So the Community Engagement Committee is sort of collecting some students. So we have had a student from last year, Farmer Lidman, I think is how you say Lidman. He's returning to be on the committee, and then Addie Prairie is going to be joining the committee. And so we're excited about that. That's that.
Great. Lisa, Finance and Facilities.
So there's no update because we had a meeting in September that we already reported out on, but the next meeting is November 14th.
Great, thank you. And are you going to have a student added? Have you had any conversations with Mike about that? No?
There didn't seem to be anybody. He thought that the Community Engagement Committee was like the last place for interest.
Okay. Great. Rab, who's?
It's Kevin. They haven't organized a meeting yet, so probably will in next month.
Great. Yes, Ethan.
Sorry, just is Kevin the new rep? Is that what I heard?
Yep, you've been asked to.
So to be clear to everyone, Ethan wasn't ousted. He got a job with one of the tech centers and can no longer be our representative on the Regional Advisory Board.
That's what I should have said.
Just to be clear.
That's what I heard you say.
Legislative and VSBA. There's a meeting next Thursday?
No, it's this Thursday.
This Thursday, yes.
So this
we are.
Thursday, if you
At 4?
If you RSVP'd for the business meeting this Thursday night, you would have received a packet from the VSBA today. Those are all the things that are going to be discussed on Thursday night. At our last meeting, y'all elected me the voting delegate for MMU. So if you go through that packet, any questions, comments, concerns, email me individually. And I will happily bring them. And then, so that's the business meeting. The conference is the afternoon of the 24th. There's a dinner invitation on the 24th, and then the full conference is Friday the 25th. You don't have to go to both dates. You can go to just Friday if you want to. I'm not sure if they're taking any more RSVPs for the conference if you didn't RSVP.
So if you want to go and you didn't RSVP, reach out to me directly and I'll figure that out for you. And we can work on that. Great. There's no legislative report because the legislature's not in session. Any other business? Just looking around. So I neglected at the beginning of the meeting to say today is Indigenous Peoples Day. I apologize for that. And our schools were in session today, which they often have not been. It's usually a teacher in service day. I'm assuming there was discussion on Indigenous Peoples Day at the school level.
Yeah,
yeah,
regionally, that's like Addison, Franklin, and Chittenden all wanted to be in school to really, educate students and talk about the meaning of Indigenous People Day.
So had I been appropriately prepared, I would have had some kind of a land acknowledgement for this location, and I apologize that I didn't. But before the meeting, we had a tour, and we walked behind the school. As we talked about earlier, the Bolton potholes are out there, and there is just an amazing view, and you hear the river, and you stand by there, and you watch the waterfall, and it was magical. I mean, Kate and I just both stood there and kind of pulled our chins back up. So the connection to the land in this space is pretty amazing. And so apologizing for doing this at the end of the meeting, but
Abenaki murals that are
yes. And there will be an Abenaki mural painted on the wall in the gym cafetorium by Abenaki artists with the students in the school later this month. Is that right? It's in the principal's report. Yes, Ethan.
Just curious if, I know we've talked about circling back to the land acknowledgement, and just that you brought it up, just sort of reminded me, is that still something that is being discussed? And I will say, I've heard from people, the power of that place, that location transcends a lot. And so I think it's telling that you felt that when you were there. And people have gathered there for probably centuries to feel that.
Yep. We don't have an update at the moment. I think that we were going to talk to folks both at the ABAR committee and in the leadership team. So we are trying to work out something where we have land acknowledgements for each of our locations, but we don't have a plan. We have a sketch. We don't have a plan. How's that? Working on it. Good call out though. Other business? No. All right. Well, thank you everybody. Our next board meeting is October 28th at Camel's Hump. There will be an optional tour starting at 6. The meeting itself starts at 6:30. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Kevin. And a second? Thank you, Thomas. We'll go with Thomas. Please vote by leaving the meeting. Thank you all so much for being here tonight and sticking with us in this very hot room. Have a great night.